Life after David was difficult. It was sad, but not impossible. I was committed to getting over him and accepting the situation for what it was. And as much as I was head over heels with David and that bubble love phase, losing the version of him that ran from me emotionally was not that big of a loss, to be honest. I focused on my music and I started dating right away. The dark night of the soul that one typically experiences after the runner leaves was merely in its infancy, maybe an embryo, if you will. After all, getting a boyfriend off of Craigslist was so easy. How hard could it be to get another one? Unfortunately, it was very hard. Since David was the first and only man I ever met online, it was almost impossible to not compare my future dates to him. Truth is, they simply didn't hold a candle to what we had. The chemistry was often not there, or if it was there, they were usually not willing to wait for intimacy like David was. One of my online matches turned out to also be seeing a friend of mine. The problem I had was that I was dating with a broken heart, even though I was keeping it buried. I also started drinking more to avoid any painful feelings. Still, I kept really busy between my music career, my friends, and my hilariously bad Craigslist dates. I didn't have time to think of David that much, even if his memory was there beneath the surface, kind of lingering in the background all the time. One day, I got a text message from a random number. My roommate just got 2 tuxedo cats. They look just like yours. So I read this and I said, okay, this person knows I have cats, so I must know them. And I was notoriously bad at saving phone numbers. I'd met people in New York City all the time where you'd exchange numbers. Maybe you talked, maybe you didn't. And oftentimes I just didn't put them in my phone. You know, the city was transient. So I typed back, I'm so sorry. I just got a new phone and I don't think your number transferred. Who is this? David, he replied. I couldn't believe it. I told my roommate what had happened. She said, that's good. He knows you're not pining over him. I felt really bad for not recognizing his number, so I gave him a call and we had a pleasant chat. We talked for about 20 minutes and it was great to talk to him, but I didn't hold on to any hope that he wanted to get back together. Men always came back to test the waters. I knew this. So I had it in the back of my mind that this day would come, but I didn't know when. And as I hung up the phone, I was so proud of myself for not fawning over him or clinging onto any false hope. A couple days later, I got an email from David. He was ready to leave his temp job. He wanted to give it a go at bartending, so he ended up faking a resume and got a call from a bar in Brooklyn. He might have faked his resume just a little too well because they called him in to interview for the position of head bartender and asked him to create a cocktail menu and set the prices for the new venue. David had never bartended a day in his life. He asked if I'd be willing to meet up with him and give him some pointers, and I told him, of course I would. When we met up, things felt very platonic between us, and I was actually excited about that. Maybe I could be friends with him, I thought. I was happy to have him back in my life in some capacity. I told him everything I knew to help him lock down that job, and he locked it down. He sent me a really nice email thanking me and telling me how excited he was to start this new chapter. I didn't respond right away. Maybe I was trying to play hard to get a little bit. So a few days later, I called him congratulating him. Well, he sent back a very short text message. The tone was brief and a little curt. I realized he was playing that game of testing the waters just to see if he could have me again and then pulling back. Still, I thought he might reach out again in the future. A few weeks went by, hadn't heard from him, and we were approaching the holidays, so I thought I would test the waters by asking him for his address so I could send him a Christmas card. He texted his address, but with no hello, how are you, no personalized message, nothing, just the address. So I realized I lost him again for the time being. we weren't going to be having this friendship. It would be another 9 months before I would hear from him again. Within those 9 months, I went on numerous dates and just could not seem to connect with any of them. Some of the dates were downright brutal. So when I was on tour in Holland, I met a man who I clicked with, and a bass player, no less. We dated briefly. I met his family. He brought about a dozen people to one of my shows. Then I found out he had a girlfriend the entire time. I came back to New York City feeling dejected and run down. When I came back, I opened up my email to see that David had written me. Hey, dude, we totally got to hang out. How about dinner? I saw on your website that you were touring Holland, and I just came back from Rotterdam. Give me a call. Here's my number. David, yes, of course he and I were in Holland at the exact same time. Forever with the synchronicities between us. My intuition told me that David had a girlfriend, and that's probably why he hadn't reached out to me in so long. Also, Rotterdam was such a specific place to travel to. Also, he referred to me as dude, and the fact that he left his number indicated to me that he knew I must have deleted him again. Still, I wanted to talk to him. I emailed my number back to him. David called me right away. We chit-chatted for a little bit, and he told me all about Rotterdam, all about it, but he didn't mention who he went with. So I asked, why did you go to Rotterdam? And he said, well, it's just such a cool place. It's so beautiful. And I said, yes, David, but why Rotterdam? In the past, I had never asked David questions I didn't want the answer to. I was always too afraid. But I decided if I couldn't communicate honestly with him, having a friendship wasn't worth it. Well, I went with my girlfriend, David countered. I'm going to go, I said. David laughed nervously. What's that? And I said, again, I'm going to go. And he said, okay, bye. And with that, I was about to close this chapter on David forever. No more of this back and forth, or no more of these synchronicities. Or so I thought.